What if what you fear most in life is precisely what God will use to show His power in you? Isaiah 43 is not just a biblical passage, it is the key to transforming your greatest fears into unforgettable testimonies. Today, I will reveal how Billy Graham discovered in this text the secret to facing the fire without being burned and crossing the waters without drowning. And in the end, I will share the most powerful promise of all, the one that will completely change the way you face your battles. Welcome to our channel of studies on the teachings of Billy Graham. Today, we will delve into one of the most impactful messages of this great evangelist who touched millions of lives around the world. Isaiah 43 was a text that Billy Graham frequently used to bring hope in times of affliction, and the way he interpreted these words continues to transform hearts even today. Before we continue, if you seek spiritual growth through deep and inspiring biblical studies, this channel is for you. Click subscribe and activate the bell to receive our new reflections based on the teachings of Billy Graham. The text of Isaiah 43 contains one of the most powerful promises in the Bible, and together we will explore how Billy Graham revealed its meaning for our daily lives. A message that transcends generations and speaks directly to the heart of those facing seemingly insurmountable challenges. Billy Graham shared this powerful message on Isaiah 43 during one of his evangelistic crusades in the 1970s, when America and the world faced profound social changes and uncertainties. It was a time of the Cold War, economic crises, and moral questioning, not much different from what we experience today. The original context of Isaiah 43 is also significant. The prophet wrote to the people of Israel during the Babylonian exile when they had lost everything: their temple, their land, their national identity. Many questioned whether God had abandoned them. Amid this despair came this word of comfort and hope. What makes this message so relevant today? We live in equally challenging times: pandemics, wars, economic crises, fragmented families, and a growing sense of spiritual isolation. Many Christians ask themselves, is God still with me? Does He still care? That is precisely why revisiting this sermon by Billy Graham is so vital for the Christian today. He reminds us that the presence of God is the answer to all anxiety and fear. Billy Graham began his exposition by highlighting the impact of the words, "I have called you by name, you are mine." It is extraordinary to realize that the Creator of the universe, who placed the stars in their places, knows us by name. It is not a distant or impersonal relationship. Graham emphasized that this is not a suggestion or a possibility. It is a definitive declaration from God. In a world where so many seek identity and belonging in temporary things, this truth revolutionizes our understanding of who we are. Have you ever stopped to consider what it means to be called by name by God? It is not just a recognition of your existence, but an affirmation of your indescribable worth in His eyes. As Billy Graham often said, God not only knows your name, He has called you into a personal relationship with Him. This fundamental truth lays the foundation for everything that follows in Isaiah 43. Because our courage in the face of difficulties depends on knowing to whom we belong. The second point that Billy Graham passionately emphasized was the command, "Fear not, for I have redeemed you." Notice that it is not a casual suggestion, but a divine command based on a complete work, redemption. Graham pointed out that fear is not just an emotion, but a spiritual strategy of the enemy. Fear paralyzes us, makes us doubt God, and prevents us from advancing in faith. But God offers a powerful antidote, the certainty of redemption. How have you been dealing with your fears? Have you faced them with the confidence of one who has been redeemed, or have you allowed them to define your limits? Billy Graham often illustrated this point with stories of people who had allowed the fear of failure, rejection, or the future to keep them captive. He then contrasted this with the freedom of those who lived in the full confidence of their redemption. The power of this part of the message lies in understanding that our courage does not depend on our circumstances, but on the complete work of God in our favor. When we know that we have been bought with a price, that our redemption is secure, we can face any situation with unwavering confidence. One of the most comforting aspects of Billy Graham's approach to the text of Isaiah 43 was his honesty about the challenges of the Christian life. He did not promise a path without difficulties, but a God present in the midst of difficulties. Note the language of the text, when you pass through the waters, and when you walk through the fire, not if, but when. Graham emphasized that God does not promise to spare us from the waters or the fire, but to be with us in them. This is a fundamental truth that many contemporary preachers avoid. We live in an age of the prosperity gospel that often suggests that genuine faith will result in a life without problems. Billy Graham, however, remained faithful to the biblical message. Believers will face tribulations, but they will never be alone in them. Have you faced deep waters in your life? Perhaps you are going through a period of refining fire? The good news is that these trials do not signify the absence of God. On the contrary, they may be the moments when His presence becomes most tangible. Graham often mentioned the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fiery furnace. The king saw not only the three men who had been thrown in, but a fourth man walking with them, unharmed in the midst of the flames. This powerful image illustrates the promise of Isaiah 43. God does not just watch us go through challenges, He walks with us through them. The fourth aspect that Billy Graham emphasized was the power of God to create possibilities where humanly there are none. I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert is a declaration of supernatural ability. Graham liked to remind his audience that the same God who opened the Red Sea, who brought water from the rock, who fed thousands with a few loaves of bread, is the God who promised to make a way in your wilderness. How many of us find ourselves in arid places in life? Situations where we see no way out, where every door seems closed, where we pray and the heavens seem silent. It is in these moments that the promise of Isaiah 43 becomes our anchor. What differentiated Billy Graham's approach was his emphasis on the character of God. He pointed out that we can trust God's promises because we know His nature. He is faithful, loving, and all-powerful. If He promised to make a way, we can be sure that He will, even when we do not see how. Graham also warned that God's way does not always look like what we expect. Sometimes He parts the sea. Other times, He gives us strength to swim. Sometimes He removes the obstacle. Other times, He empowers us to climb it. His ways are higher than ours, but they are always perfect. The practical application of this truth transforms the way we face seemingly impossible situations. We do not trust in our ability to find a way, but in the promise that God will make one where there is none. The final and perhaps deepest aspect of Billy Graham's interpretation of Isaiah 43 was the radical transformation that occurs when we truly understand to whom we belong. You are mine. These three simple words completely redefine our identity. Graham observed that many people spend their lives seeking acceptance, trying to prove their worth, allowing the opinions of others to shape their self-image. The antidote to this endless search is the certainty that we belong to God. When God says, "You are mine," He is not referring to an idealized or perfected version of us. He is not claiming only the parts that seem worthy or acceptable. He calls us His in our entirety, with our flaws, weaknesses, and struggles. As Billy Graham often emphasized, God's love is not based on our performance, but on His nature. He is faithful even when we are unfaithful. His love is not conditional or temporary. It is eternal and unwavering. This truth transforms not only how we see ourselves, but how we live. We no longer need the approval of others. We do not need to prove our worth. We do not need to live in fear of rejection. We can walk with confidence, not because of who we are, but because of whose we are. As we reflect on this powerful exposition of Isaiah 43 by Billy Graham, we are confronted with a transformative truth. In a world filled with uncertainties, we have a God who calls us by name, who promises to be with us in the storms, who makes ways where there are none, and who declares firmly, "You are mine." This is not an abstract truth to be admired from a distance, but a reality to be lived daily. When you wake up tomorrow and face the challenges of the day, remember, you do not walk alone. The same God who promised to be with Israel in exile is with you now. Billy Graham often concluded his messages with an invitation to a personal decision. Today, I do the same to you. Will you live in the confidence of this promise? Will you allow the certainty of God's presence to transform your fears into faith? Will you choose to believe that He is making a way even when you cannot see it? If this study touched your heart, do not let it be just another piece of information. Allow it to be a transformation. Share this video with someone who may be going through deep waters or a fiery trial. Leave in the comments how the message of Isaiah 43 has been relevant in your life. Subscribe to our channel to continue exploring the timeless teachings of Billy Graham that have the power to renew our minds and strengthen our faith. Activate the bell to be notified about our upcoming studies. Before we say goodbye, I want to ask a question. What storm are you facing today? Perhaps it is the waters of financial uncertainty, the fire of a broken relationship, or the desert of a spiritual struggle. Wherever you are, know that God speaks to you right now through Isaiah 43. Fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name. You are mine. If this message brought hope to your heart, share it with someone who needs this same comfort. Leave in the comments a word of testimony about how God has been your presence in the storms. And remember, just as Billy Graham proclaimed for decades, I reaffirm today, it is not about crossing the storm without getting wet. It is about never having to cross it alone. You are His. This is the promise that no one can take from you.